fantasy forecast.
All right, prepare yourself and do it by putting the Cardinals defense in your lineup.
That would be a wise maneuver.
The Cardinals are heading to St. Louis to take on the Rams.
Take on Todd Gurley.
Gurley.
It's the Cardinals versus Todd Gurley.
We saw that Todd Gurley is not invulnerable.
Yeah.
Last week with Nick Foles under center. And now the Cardinals go and they face Nick Foles. The Rams are averaging about 188 yards through the air this year. This is not good.
And so for Todd Gurley owners, the Cardinals, that was when the Todd Gurley explosion happened, just to kind of remind everybody.
146-yard breakout game against the Cardinals.
Now, we also must remind people that it was almost all in the fourth quarter, where through the first half he had, I think, 2 or 3 yards. It was bad, and then he opened it up. But like I was talking about with Eddie Lacy, that's the kind of game you need from Todd Gurley. You got to commit to it all the entire game. So, are you scared of playing Gurley this week?
Am I scared? No, I'm the same attitude I am with a top flight running back that has a bad matchup. He's out there. I mean, he's going to play for me no matter what because of the potential and because of his track record, right? He had last week was the first game that he hasn't produced. So,
is there anyone you would bench him for? I mean, how
bench him for? No. There's no situation I would bench him because he's not my 2 in any situation. Right. I think where I'm benching him for somebody.
He's very similar this week to Mark Ingram in the sense that you've got a guy who's been producing week in and week out with a terrible matchup. But then again, I mean, you saw Todd Gurley run on the Cardinals, so I'm not too worried. A lot of people are worried. Teams are stacking the box more and more against Gurley.
There's going to be 10 guys in the box this week.
Yeah, but the Cardinals are the type of team that the one thing I would say is their run D, which is very good, it does seem to get worn down by this type of runners. So,
and especially guys who run to the outside, like because Gurley has speed.
And this game, the Vegas line on this game is 6 now. It's a 6-point line. It's in St. Louis. They're not putting this at a 10, 11-point line. The game's going to be closer. The St. Louis defense is not bad. It's a divisional game. We saw this last week at the Cardinals and the Rams. There'll be holes for Gurley. He'll find his way, especially if he catches some passes because the Cardinals can't guard that for some reason.
Okay, so what about Fitzgerald? He's a start. Palmer is a start. Michael Floyd, John Brown. Do you guys have any feelings of going with one or the other, or are they both sitting down?
I would play John Brown over Michael Floyd.
Over Floyd?
I would. I'd temper expectations with both, but I would have no problem starting Brown as the 3. I can check to see where we have him exactly on the rankings, consensus-wise. But do you guys have any thoughts on Floyd or Brown or who you prefer?
I think I actually prefer Michael Floyd only from the standpoint of when the Cardinals go up against a very good pass defense, they tend to take bigger shots. So, if you want more of a boom game, you saw that right in Seattle.
The Seattle game.
Seattle game. Michael Floyd, against that good defense, they went with the taller, stronger guy.
John Brown was still a bit banged up during that game.
True.
We have them back-to-back in our rankings. So they're 29 or 28 and 29 and 30. There you go. 29 and 30, and none of us really has different opinions. Jason has them both a little bit higher. Jason has them at the back end of a wide receiver 2, which is interesting to have them there. But I think one will end up there. I think one of these guys is going to end up as a 2 this week, so I don't mind that. It's just picking which one is going to be difficult. The Cardinals' defense is a great start. We know that. Is there anybody Tavon Austin had a good bounce-back game. He's picking them up on these end-arounds and the rushing attempts. Do you start John Brown or Tavon Austin?
You are flying with the flimsiest of flight machines when you throw Tavon Austin in your lineup, so I'm not
if the question is Brown versus Austin, it's definitely going to be Brown.
It's Todd Gurley or bust for the Rams for me.
Yeah, we do not have Austin ranked very high. Anything else from this game?
Nope.
Running back situation. We know the Cardinals.
What are we doing?
See, I know how to stay there until we need to move on.
Who are we talking about?
David Johnson.
Back into the limelight. every expectation that I have is that, you're going to see a pretty good game from David Johnson because of the workload, involvement in the passing game. I do expect there to be a very similar situation to what we saw with Buck Allen on Monday Night Football, where the rookie's being involved, but they're going to involve Stephen Taylor. They're going to involve somebody else in the backfield.
Kerwin Williams got brought back up.
Yep.
Yes, I'd expect David Johnson, unless he makes an egregious mistake, he will be the guy. And his opportunity to score, you got to put it very high, like at least a 50% chance to get in the end zone. So he's very solid play with a massive ceiling.
All right. The Falcons head to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers, and the Falcons are in a tailspin, and the Buccaneers are favored in this matchup. This is the Matt Ryan, Jameis Winston extravaganza. Winston has been playing a lot better. He's offered fantasy owners in deeper leagues, 2 quarterback leagues, a very nice baseline, including a 5-touchdown game a couple weeks ago. Matt Ryan is going the wrong direction. In zone interceptions as opposed to in zone touchdowns.
Who would you rather have between those two guys? You're going to start Matt Ryan over Winston?
Yeah. I'm going to start Matt Ryan just because of
Julio.
I see Julio Jones having a magnifique game.
Anybody want to bet me Matt Ryan versus Winston? I'd take Winston.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take Matt Ryan on that.
You just said that. You and Mike too?
Yeah, okay. 2 on 1?
2 on 1.
Bet.
Okay.
I'll take Jameis.
Yeah, I do like Jameis' talent, but the problem is, while Atlanta has proven to be what I think we said for a long time, which is more of a sham than their beginning record showed, they still do have a very good pass defense. I think you're going to see Doug Martin having a better game, and so Vincent Jackson I think is okay. I have Mike Evans in our league of record. I'm a little bit scared. I think the last time they played the Falcons, he ended up with 3 catches for 40 yards, somewhere around that. So, it's a little worrisome to me to see how Winston operates against that cover 3D.
I just don't think the Falcons defense can hold up long term. I think we've seen the breakdown of the offensive side of the ball. I think I heard a stat that, the Falcons aren't taking deep shots. That's one of the problems. Believe it or not, I think Matt Ryan is like 4th in the league in completing those passes, but they're like 14th in attempts. So, they have the 4th most completions, but they're just not taking those deep shots, which hurts Julio owners. His touchdown receptions have been super low over the last 7 weeks, which obviously you're starting Julio. That's not in debate here. I start Mike Evans. The questions become, do you start Vincent Jackson? Where would he fit in? The Bucs, like you said, they rushed the ball well. I think you said Doug Martin, right?
Yeah, Doug Martin I think is going to be good. Let me give you a couple stats here against the quarterback for the Falcons, because they started the year off giving up plenty of points, plenty of yards. Now, the last half of the year, how have the Falcons been playing? Good or bad?
Bad,
right? They've been losing games.
Very
Yet during
as a team, they've been bad. Yeah. Sorry, Falcons.
sorry, but here's at that same time, while they have been losing games, their defense. This is the yards they've given up through the air in the last 5 games: 174, 213. Spoiler alert: that's the high.
Ooh.
The high is 213.
I like that
yards.
you warned me, or you gave me a spoiler alert on this.
Yeah. 185, 177, 187. So this is where I don't see Jameis Winston having a huge game. I don't see really Evans or Jackson having a huge game. One of them is probably going to catch a touchdown. It's playing craps to decide who's going to do it. You probably only have one on your team, so if you want to roll them out, you can. But I would prefer to stick with the running game here for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, we know that the Bucs, they're averaging 141 yards on the ground. That's 3rd in the league, which is a tremendous pace. So I love Doug Martin this week, and Jacob Tamme is a sneaky start. He's had a couple of good games, and one of his good games was against Tampa Bay. Now we do say that whatever has happened can happen in reverse.
It's one of our most wise sayings.
So
whoever said that is really bright.
So I'm not guaranteeing that, but he's just
if you're an Eifert owner and you need a handcuff,
yeah, Sure.
Yeah,
Tammy,
that's
you
a decent
could do worse than Tammy.
You know, speaking of that, and I've really been following the news. This is not probably worthy of a breaking news, but Austin Severian-Jenkins has been practicing and is not cleared to play. So by next season, he might be practicing in full. He's only been able to practice for about 2 months now.
Did you realize? Actually, I found this out. This entire time, he's been practicing chess. He's been learning how to play chess.
He really needs
It had
to
nothing
practice.
to do with football.
Yeah, so deeper league where you get points for benched guys.
I do have a little bit of breaking news. I just checked. Well, no, it's not quite in that category. This is more, very good information for the Lacey owners. Lacey came out and said this when they interviewed him. I don't feel as though that's something I should get into yet. When asked about his roles being scaled back.
When I heard that, the first thing that went through my head was like, was there something outside of practice? Like, is there a suspension coming? Or
well, I mean, he said Eddie didn't have a great week, so we went with James. That is another,
AKA
something.
There was a pie, and McCarthy and Lacey were going in.
Oh my goodness!
And Lacey took the last piece.
That's just rude, Eddie.
I have different directions I could go with this. I'm going to choose the high road. I'm going to head back to the game previews. I'm not going to go anywhere near Andy Reid. All right, the Broncos and
wait, I actually have legitimate breaking news.
Hit the button.
We got it.
Breaking news.
Alan Hearns officially ruled out. He's now.
Sorry, Jason.
I know.
So,
I thought he was going to do it.
So he's officially ruled out. I still give him a 25% chance to play.
Yeah, exactly. All right, go on.
All right, we're moving on. Denver heads to San Diego in my.
Andy's almost upset of the week.
Wow.
Go ahead and put Brock Osweiler on the road against a team that can score some points if need be. And you've got my almost upset of the week. The Chargers are 4-point underdogs at home. Not a guarantee here.
Divisional game.
But I think it can happen. It's really going to depend on what the defense for the football Chargers can do. I think it's possible that they upset the Broncos at home in this matchup because of the offensive production from the Denver side. I'm not, some people have written in and they said, someone wrote in and they said they had, Osweiler and, Foles or something as their quarterback options this week. I'm like, no, there's got to be somebody else that you have. Osweiler's not, like they picked up Osweiler because he was a new name, is what I'm saying. And Osweiler, just so you understand, is not somebody that we're recommending in any real context for fantasy football because of the formation of the offense and the numbers involved in the running game and what they're doing with Osweiler.
I will say this. 10 out of 10 times I'm going to recommend Brock Osweiler over Nick Foles.
Yeah, that's legit.
I agree.
I'm
going to recommend Cecil Shorts at quarterback over Nick Foles.
That's funny. What Brock Osweiler does do well for the offense, though, is he changes the running game for Denver. And what San Diego does not do well is play defense against the running game. So this is why I believe C.J. Anderson is your start of the week. Is that correct?
You're darn tootin' it is.
You want to hear what C.J. Anderson's game's difference with Brock Osweiler under center
versus Peyton Manning?
Versus Peyton Manning under center?
I would love to hear that.
Well, in an average scoring system, with Peyton Manning, 6.3 fantasy points per game.
Okay, that sounds like the first round bust that we drafted.
Yeah, it's not good. With Brock Osweiler, 18.75 fantasy points a game. So, I mean, he had more touchdowns. Obviously, that's in it. Small sample size, 2 games. But when you watch, you could see that the running game, and this is true for Hillman too. I'm not completely on C.J. Anderson as the guy. I think it comes down to the carry splits. And if CJ ends up getting 60% of the carries, I think he's going to have a really good game. I'm curious how the carries break off, but I do think Hillman and CJ, the combination, whoever gets the ball for Denver is going to run well against San Diego.
There's not. Yeah, the only thing I'll say about that, there's not a situation where that's guaranteed to happen, where one guy's just going to get the ball. If they straight up split, would you start them both? Is a real good question.
If they straight up split, I would start
15 carries each.
I would start C.J. Anderson happily,
but I would start
Ronnie Hillman unhappily.
Really?
Yeah, I think
Why
I could flex him
unhappily?
in because I don't think he's going to have as good a game. I'm saying if they both get 15 carries, which I think is a perfect number, they could both get 15 carries this game. I think C.J. Anderson ends the game with a very good fantasy day, and I think Ronnie Hillman ends the game with a serviceable fantasy day.
And because C.J. Anderson with the 15 carries is likely to get 3 or 4 catches, where Ronnie Hillman might get 1.
Yep. That's a great point.
So what we're breaking down here is once C.J. Anderson started playing with B.O., he's been a lot better.
Like the nickname.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense. He smelled like B.O. for the first half of the season, so it's hard to get back on that. But once he started playing with him, that makes sense. Good analysis. All right, Danny Woodhead, kind of back on, a little bit more involved last week, 6 for 39 through the air after a weird 1-reception week. Do we flex Danny Woodhead?
Yeah, you flex him, but you don't. The Chargers, come on, man. Because you know that they're going to run Melvin Gordon into the Denver defensive front like 16 times.
Yeah.
And he's going to get about 25 yards.
I think he'll pick up plenty of yards.
No.
He'll pick up
If
50.
you want to make a water bet about 25 yards, I'm happy to do it.
25 yards is being very hyperbolic.
Yes.
Melvin Gordon will do what Melvin Gordon do, which is 16 carries, 58 yards, and no touchdowns.
You're probably right.
Okay,
I tried to get Jason into I was willing to bet Jason that Melvin Gordon would score a touchdown as long as I took 1 water if he didn't, and he took 10 if he did.
That's a
So
little
I'm
too
going to
far
just put it
odds.
up on the air again.
I'll give you 3 to 1 odds.
ridiculous.
Three cups to 1.
How many touchdowns has he scored in the history of his professional career?
0.
Okay.
Yeah.
So since he was born, he's had 0 touchdowns as an NFL player. Is that what you
But
said?
10 to 1 odds is on something like that is just ridiculous.
10 to 1 touchdown odds, even though through 11 games he scored 9.
That's a horrific bet.
I disagree.
It's
Of
horrific.
course you do. You're trying to make
So
it.
make it 10 to 10.
No, that's ridiculous.
Oh, how that's ridiculous?
Because he hasn't scored. Do you know how odds work, Mike?
I do.
The odds favor the situation whether it's going to happen or not.
Right, but 10 to 1 is way off. 3 to 1 is perfect.
10 to 1 on whether Gordon. I bet you.
3 to 1 is
3 to 1 is
3 to 1 is perfect. And going 10 to 1 is a coward's way of getting out
Oh,
of the bet.
whatever.
You would take.
Whatever.
I would take if you believed in that bet, you'd go 3 to 1.
That's ridiculous. I'm not doing that. But what I am going to do is I'm going to curiously take a look at the prop bets for that game and find out what the actual prop bet is for Gordon scoring a touchdown, and then I'll give it to you, and then we'll see if.
I like that.
We'll see if Jason has what it takes. Thank you for getting involved, though, Mike. We really appreciate that.
So
Give me some more context
while
on
you
the
do
game.
that, I'll talk about one of the fascinating points of this game. So what you have here,
That's Andy doing work, looking up some prop
you
bets.
have the
right.
San Diego Chargers, who are one of the highest passing rate. Like they pass the ball nonstop. I know that they have been giving Melvin Gordon a decent amount of touches, but they still end up with so much production through the air, and yet you're going up against the number 1 through the air defense, who's been giving it up on the ground. So what
got
gives?
so
They give,
I got so
they give
confused by that.
fantasy points on
Yes.
the ground because yards per game, the Broncos are second.
Fair enough. Which bodes well for Melvin Gordon getting a touchdown, right? I mean, just if
All you-
history repeats itself.
The only thing that Melvin Gordon needs will be a 50-yard pass interference call on Malcolm Floyd that puts him at the 1, and then they run him 4 times. If they run him 4 times from the 1, he'll score.
There you go.
Oh, so you make that point and you don't back up a 10 to 1 bet.
Because 10 to 1 is
Akeem
just
Talib
ridiculous.
loves pass interference calls. I mean, Andy, you know I only bet when the odds are ever in my favor.
So-
Yeah. Well,
but
we already have one with Yeldon.
And
Does
Antonio-
anybody know about that? Because I think we made it on the Patreon mailbag show.
Yeah, the Yeldon bet is what sparked this bet. Yeldon rushing touchdown. If he gets a rushing touchdown this game, I take 3 waters. And when he doesn't get a rushing touchdown this game, Andy takes a water. If he gets in through the air, it's a null bet.
That's perfect. That's a perfect bet.
I can't find the.
So Antonio Gates, we are comfortable starting him. He is Jason's start of the week as a more of a confidence boost, saying we believe he can get it done. What about Demaryius Thomas versus Emmanuel Sanders? If you're looking at that situation,
I
what are you
expect
doing?
DT to bounce back. I do. I don't know how much they're going to need those guys if this game's going to be run dependent, but I would play Demaryius Thomas over Emmanuel Sanders this week.
Because Sanders had a pretty good rapport going there with Brock Osweiler. I'm looking up the targets.
Well, we've seen two different
Right
games, right? I mean, you obviously had Demaryius Thomas get plenty of targets last week. 13 targets.
He got 13?
Yeah, he got.
Oh, that's right.
And he caught one ball. So it wasn't for a lack of targeting Demaryius Thomas.
I
So
forgot how bad it was.
now, if it's just a cold weather thing, obviously San Diego is going to be a great change of weather.
What is that condition you have when you smoke a lot? That disease you get?
Bronchitis?
No.
Oh.
A tracheotomy?
No, it's
slipping
it's,
my mind completely.
It's escaping me.
It's whatever
as
Jason
well.
has. All right, let's go ahead
don't
and talk.
smoke.
No, you don't smoke. Which
Emphysema.
is what makes that's the
Yeah.
that's what I was looking for.
Nailed it.
All right, what else do we need to talk about from this game? I was looking at prop bets, so tell me, did you talk about Stevie Johnson already?
We
no,
did
not yet.
Okay. Stevie Johnson's my sit of the week in this game. We've talked about it. How many touchdowns has the Broncos defense given up to the wide receiver position?
1 on the year.
So,
Okay, well, let me ask you this. If this is your almost upset of the week, and we know that the Chargers cannot score on the ground, how are they scoring if you don't like Stevie Johnson this week?
I like Antonio Gates. I like field goals. I like Danny Woodhead. I like Melvin Gordon to maybe get in the end zone. I like defensive scores. I'm talking 24 to 20, something in that range, maybe
That's
less.
fair. I just was curious.
18, 16, something weird.